The mud of Heilbronn in April 1945 did not feel like a place where life began. It felt like the cold, damp end of it. 19-year-old Anna Schaefer lay curled in a roadside ditch, the fabric of her Luftwaffe Helferin uniform clinging to her skin like a shroud. She had been hiding for 3 days, a ghost among the wreckage of a surrendered unit, her face a mask of dried blood and German soil. When the patrol from the U.S. 100th Infantry Division finally stumbled upon her, she didn't see liberators. She saw the inevitable end. She threw her hands up, the air leaving her lungs in a jagged scream, pleading for a mercy she didn't believe existed. Among the soldiers was Private First Class Vincent "Vinny" Rossi, a 22-year-old from Brooklyn whose Italian-American heritage gave him just enough of his grandmother's German to understand the depth of the terror in her voice. He raised his rifle, the instinct of war guiding his hands, but then he looked into her eyes. He didn't see an enemy. He saw a child drowning in fear. Vinny lowered his weapon and stepped closer, and as Anna squeezed her eyes shut in anticipation of a final blow, she felt the sudden, violent rip of fabric. Her mind raced to the darkest possibilities of war, but the reality was a different kind of salvation. Vinny hadn't torn her jacket for assault. He had seen the unnatural hue of her skin and the way she favored her side. Underneath the tattered cloth lay a horrific emerald green infection, a shrapnel wound teeming with maggots that had been poisoning her blood for days. The air filled with a harsh Italian curse as Vinny shouted for a medic. Corporal Daniel Goldstein, a man who had fled the shadows of Vienna in 1938, knelt in the mud and began the clinical, desperate work of cleaning the wound with sulfa powder and morphine. The prognosis was grim. Without immediate intervention, sepsis would claim her in a matter of hours. Without a second thought for the protocols of war or the weight of his gear, Vinny gathered the frail girl into his arms. She felt like nothing, a collection of bones and spirit, as he began a 2-mile sprint toward the nearest aid station. The entire patrol ran with him, a strange funeral procession turned rescue mission, taking turns carrying the girl who was supposed to be their enemy. When Anna tried to offer a broken thank you, Vinny simply told her to save her breath for living. At the field hospital, the war stopped for 6 hours while surgeons worked to extract 14 shards of metal and a portion of her shoulder blade. When she finally opened her eyes 3 days later, the world was no longer gray and brown. It was the white of clean sheets and the warmth of a hospital ward. Beside her, slumped in a chair with his boots still caked in the mud of the front lines, sat Vinny. Her first words were a whisper, accusing him of tearing her dress, to which he turned a deep shade of red and defended his clumsy heroism. In that moment, amidst the pain and the 4 drips, Anna laughed for the first time in years, a sound that signaled the war was truly over. By October, the world was settling into a fragile peace, and Anna was learning to walk again with the help of a cane. Vinny had stayed, extending his tour of duty twice, using every moment of leave to sit by her side. On the day of her release, he presented her with a small box containing a sky-blue dress, purchased with the spoils of 6 months of poker games. It was more than a garment, it was an invitation. He knelt with a soldier's awkwardness and asked to replace the dress he had destroyed with a lifetime of new ones. Her answer was a tearful yes, spoken in 3 languages, and they were married in the hospital chapel the following spring. Vinny carried her over the threshold not just out of tradition, but because the rain still made her old wounds ache. They built a life in the image of that. Grace, naming their first daughter after the nurse who helped save her, and every year on the anniversary of her capture, Anna wore that blue dress. It became a family legend, punctuated by Vinny's favorite joke about how tearing a woman's clothes off on the first date usually didn't lead to a wedding. The decades passed, and the blue of the dress became a symbol of a life well lived, a contrast to the blood-stained scrap of uniform Anna kept preserved in glass, the piece Vinny had torn away to find the wound. In 1995, 50 years after that muddy day in Germany, Anna stood in a cemetery in Stuttgart. Vinny was gone now, resting beneath a stone that she approached with a trembling hand and a heavy cane. She didn't bring flowers, she brought the blue dress. She draped it over the cold marble like a blanket, shielding him as he had once shielded her. Beside it, she placed the glass-encased scrap of her old uniform. She spoke to the silence, telling him that she had never forgotten the tomorrow he gave her. She kissed the stone and wept with the same intensity she had felt as a young woman in a hospital ward, a scene watched from a distance by a moved groundskeeper. Even after Anna's visits grew less frequent, the legend of the blue dress lived on. Every April 17th, a blue ribbon appeared on the grave, accompanied by a single red rose. Passers-by would occasionally see an elderly woman with a cane standing by the stone, her face lit by a smile that belonged to a 19-year old in love. The story remained a testament to the fact that some loves are not defined by the time they end, but by the moment they began, a moment where a soldier chose life over violence and a torn dress became the fabric of a forever. Some stories don't fade into the gray of history. They simply change from the red of war to the sky blue of peace, shining long after the actors have left the stage.